Our next guest, the last one for today, brought a really, really interesting topic, and it's kind of a shame there's not so many people here, but you'll be thrilled by the thoughts he brought us. It's a new project that's been around for about a year now, and it is an answer to one of the biggest social crises we have been facing here in Germany and throughout Europe. It's the refugee crisis. And next up with me is Markus Kreßler from Kiron University, the founder of Kiron University. It's a university project which basically supplies education to refugees, right?
Yes, that's it.
And my main question, and I hope you can answer throughout your talk, will be why not normal universities would find an answer to that one, and why you had to found your own university. You're still pretty young, so you're probably just done doing your studies yourself, right?
Yeah, still have to write my master's thesis actually. So
look at that, a student founding his own university to actually supply education to refugees. Maybe we put up the desk real quick. And then we'll be having Markus talking about how he wants to solve the problem of refugees and how they can finish the education they started before they had to flee their own countries. So the stage is yours.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it's actually not a university. Maybe that's to put that first. It's an education institution which is especially not a university, because otherwise we would have the same problems by giving refugees access to higher education like classic universities. But I'm going to show you those in a minute. So what do we do? Kiron brings refugees from camp to campus. That's our mission. And we do this by creating partnerships with the world leading MOOC providers, so providers of massive open online courses like edX, Coursera, Udacity, iversity. We partnered up with those online course providers to take these online courses, bundle them into study programs, and then create basically a whole support environment so that refugees can actually do their first 1 or 2 years of their study programs online. So that is the current situation that we are facing. It's 60 million displaced people worldwide. Costs per university are around 14,000 euro if you take the international average per year. A year at Kiron costs about 400 euro in comparison to that. 400,000 students is approximately the potential range that we would have in Europe. These numbers are actually mid of last year, so right now they are probably doubled. 15,000 students signed up to our platform 14 days after we launched it, and 8 million people is the number of refugees worldwide that have the capabilities to study. So the problem is just 1% of the refugees do actually have access to higher education. Compared to this, in Syria it was 25% of the people between 80 and 24 who studied before. If you look at females, the numbers are even more dramatic. So why is that? Basically, UNHCR already identified the 4 major problems about 5 years ago in their 2012 report. And it's pretty easy to say that, of course, it's a legal issue problem. Refugees can't access higher education because they don't have the legal status to access higher education. You have to be a permanent citizen in many countries. In Germany, you have to be a recognized refugee, and that's the status that just the minority of refugees actually get. College capacities, especially in the first 2 years, we do not even have enough seats to study for German students. So how should we handle thousands of refugees coming to us and also keeping the inner peace? And of course, language. If someone comes to Germany, and that's, I think, the point where it gets very clear how the bureaucratic process actually interacts with that. First, it takes about 6 months to 12 months until you can actually give your reasons for asylum. After that, the reasons have to be recognized. This might take another 3 to 6 months. So there's already 1.5 years that you spend without doing anything. And just when your reasons for asylum are recognized, you can actually apply for a language course that the German government then provides you. So 1.5 years doing nothing, I think that's pretty understandable that many people do actually lose their motivation in this period. And we need a specific solution exactly for this period. And of course, costs. Germany, most universities are free. In Jordan, for example, university costs are comparable to the United States. And of course, people in Jordan do not have that much money. It's a real privilege to study there. So how do we try to tackle these challenges? That's the student track out of the student's perspective at Kiron. So someone, let's say Oday or Fatuma, two friends of mine, come to Germany. Oday came from Syria, Fatuma from Somalia, and they got to know about Kiron through the UNHCR. UNHCR informs about our program, so we step in directly into the process when refugees, actually before refugees arrive in their new home country. So theoretically, Oday and Fatuma could have started their studies even before they decided to go to Germany. And that's really important because on average, especially before the big wave in last year, people who flee, who search for refuge between 5 and 11 years. So the whole course to Germany actually takes up to 11 years for some families that come to Germany. So it's important to also offer education opportunities in the refugee camps or in stations where people are even before they are in their countries of destination. So when Oday and Fatuma enter the whole Kiron system, we first provide them with everything that they need to study. So in cooperation with Google, for example, we provide them with Google Chromebooks that are perfectly made for our online platform. We have our own e-learning technology platform that's called Nipster. There's softwares like a contextual search engine, so mostly e-learning softwares that are optimized for watching MOOCs, taking notes, learning with MOOCs, all stuff like that. Then we have a language school. So everyone who is not eligible yet for a state language course can already begin to learn German in our virtual classroom. So you just need a computer and an internet connection, and you can access our virtual classroom. There's certified language trainers that sit every day for 2 hours with 7 of our students, kind of like in a Google Hangout. It's a language course that's scientifically proven. It's 25% faster than the language courses refugees get nowadays, and just costs 20% of the regular language courses. Then, of course, we also have solutions for internet access. It's mostly local solutions still, but also stuff like internet.org can be of some use there. And companies like Keynote, they provide also learning environments in study hubs that we built up. So in the first year, when someone comes to Kiron, our students get like a liberal arts study part. So we provide them with a whole range of courses that they can choose out of. It's 600 courses at the moment, mostly from MIT, Stanford, Harvard, Yale, so really the American elite universities. Also more courses coming up out of Germany, especially in engineering and computer science. And even in the Arabic-speaking world, there's massive open online courses coming up. And all of these online courses are already ECTS certified. So they are actually made to be part of a curriculum. No one has done it so far. In the second year, our students choose their subject. This actually also already happens in the first year. And it's 4 subjects that they mostly study: engineering, computer science, business, and social sciences. And then in the third year, our students transfer to one of our partner institutions. So we have about 130 universities that we are in talks with at the moment. Most of them are in Germany, like the RWTH Aachen, the HPI. There's universities also in Jordan and in Turkey that we talk with. And the goal is to send our students to these universities in the third year that already recognize the courses from the first 2 years that our students have done at Kiron. So as you can see, most of our students come from Syria. It's pretty representative of the refugee streams. Okay, and it's really interesting. If you look at the number of our students, most of them actually already did a degree before they came to Kiron. So for many students, they already have a bachelor's degree or master's degree or even a PhD, or they have some working experience as engineers from their countries. Often their degrees are just not recognized in Germany, so they decide to start from the beginning. And that's very interesting because we found out that 50% of our students actually want to become entrepreneurs. They do not even want to finish their degrees. They just signed up for our program so for the identity change, basically. They don't want to be a refugee anymore. They want to be a student. And this makes a huge shift in their mindset and opens a complete new universe of opportunities for them. So how does the concept exactly work? I picked out 3 basic pillars that Kiron is based up on. Let's maybe start with the business model. That's the easiest to explain. So basically, Kiron is a social business, which means at the beginning, of course, you are based on fundings like crowdfunding, government spendings, or donations. But refugees, especially human resources, have such a great potential in their own that, of course, there's also ways to actually find a scalable and a sustainable business model behind it. And the concept that we chose was a reverse generation contract, which means we make partnerships with companies that are really interested in recruiting out of our pool of graduates. And these companies pay us a certain percentage of the income of our students when they're successfully transferred to their company. Okay, the second pillar is our education concept. And then I will go to how does the technology actually work. So the Kiron model is based on up to a 4-year program. So in the Arabic-speaking world, most university programs last for 4 years. So we can even offer the first 2 years of university education. While we're doing this, all of our students take intensive language courses so that we also prepare them for the requirements they need to access our partner universities. Because, of course, the universities treat our students equally. All that we can do is provide them with some courses that are recognized by the universities and give them access to all the other requirements like language proficiency or also an Abitur, a high school certificate that lots of universities require. So people do this while they are studying at Kiron. So that's, for example, a course matching with the RWTH Aachen. And as you can see, we can actually pretty much cover like 80–90% of their curriculum. Okay, but that's not all. For us, it's really important that it's not just an online system. We believe that technology can facilitate learnings, especially for refugees, but it shouldn't be solely based on online education. So what we try to do is we pick every single part of a university and we try to rethink it. So does there necessarily have to be lecture halls or campus for students? Can't you maybe make partnerships with co-working spaces or with maybe conference centers where our students can go to? They get computers there, they have internet access, and they can actually set up their own study groups, and we just facilitate those. So that's a lot of what we are doing. And this is actually all under the Direct Academics program, where we also have local groups of mostly retired professors that give teachings to our students where they can ask their questions. And this is in the real world. And it also, of course, happens in the online world where we do like Google Hangouts with our teaching staff. Then, of course, we have the study hubs. So there's many initiatives in the civil society, like the CO photo gallery, for example, in Berlin. There's a study hub for our students where they can access our whole course system, and at the same time there's also teachings from the CO gallery where people can become photographers, they can learn some practical coding skills or some design skills. So it makes a lot of sense to actually always see what kind of resources are there locally and how can you combine them with our system. Then we have career services. It's a mentor program mainly where we connect companies with refugees. And what we figured out is that Often it's not so much the problem that the degrees are not recognized of refugees. A huge problem is the gap between living in a camp, not coming out of the camp, and a job that might actually fit that person's skills. So, for example, Markus from the BMW Foundation, he took two of our students as mentees, and he figured that one of them has actually exactly the skills that he was looking for, or that one of the BMW's departments was looking for. So of course, he gave him a job, even though he did not fulfill the legal or the job requirements in terms of the degree that had to be recognized. Then of course we have everything that especially important for refugees, like the language school I pointed out, or psychological support. So I picked out two of these concepts to just explain to you shortly. The study hub concept, we also call them migration hubs. That's something that turned out to be a huge success, especially in South Germany, where we have, I think, 6 study hubs now. And lots of local companies were interested in actually seeing what happens in these study hubs. And we kind of had a social entrepreneurship approach there, where we gave coachings to our students on how they can actually set up their own businesses, how can they put their ideas into place. So it's way more than just a study hub. Of course, there's computers, there's internet access, and people can study there on our online platform. But it's also a space for them where they can meet, exchange, and work on their own ideas. So actually way more practical kind of learning than in conventional universities. Or our buddy program. So we just matched people who were interested in being a buddy of a student with our students, and it turned out that many of our students actually got a job or found new friends just through this buddy program. So that's some of our academics partner that we have right now. And let's go to the technology behind it. I actually wanted to bring a live demonstration, but unfortunately it didn't work, so that's some old pictures of our platform. So at the beginning, there's an onboarding process for the students that explains how the platform works. So you can see there's the different programs. You can sign up for buddy mentor program. You can contact psychological counselors. You can meet with the nearest local group of Kiron. You see all the events. So it's all online, and that's a huge benefit, especially for refugees, because someone who's not able to study in Berlin, for example, might actually be able to study in Munich, because the regulations are completely different. So in regards of the Abitur, of the high school certification, in some parts of Germany it's enough to have a formal education and something like a practical skills for 6 years. In other parts of Germany, you have to have the Abitur as the high school, or as the entrance requirement for the university. And since we can track all of the data of our students, we can actually show them all the opportunities that come up for them. So in the end, our students can choose between all of these 5 subjects, and they choose one of these subjects. They see, that's for example the liberal arts study part. They see all of the subjects that are inside of liberal arts, and then we give them recommended courses. That's the courses that are already recognized by our partner universities, or they can also just freely explore courses and do whatever they feel like. But of course, we advise our students to choose a direct study track so that they actually know I have to get 100 credits, because after that I can change to the technical university in Berlin, for example. So that's for engineering, for example. It's applications in engineering mechanics. This course, I think it's taught at Georgia Technical University. It gives 3 credit points, and you can just go to course. Yep, and then it's Georgia Institute of Technology. So you are directly transferred to our partner Coursera, and Coursera gives us all the information about how has the student succeeded in that course, when did he finish that course, and the credits are automatically transferred to the dashboard of that student. So you can see some of the course content. That's one live screenshot of the course. Or Introduction to Computer Science. That's the most famous massive open online course. It's taken by 50,000 students each semester. And it's one of the best Introduction to Computer Science courses that's out there in the world. People normally pay $40,000 a year to actually sit in this classroom and get these courses. And you can just get them for free at Harvard. You can do these online courses. They also include examinations. And then in the end, all of your testing examinations are saved in our second platform, Kiron Plan, where we have all the courses of the students collected, and that's also what we hand to the universities in the end. Okay, that was our academic system, but that's not for everyone. Like, we figured, as I said, 50% of our students want to become entrepreneurs. If you look to Jordan or to Turkey, for example, that's where I am working mostly at the time. It's especially practical skills that are actually needed. So in Jordan, there's basically just two options. Either you become an academic or you become a farmer. There's nothing in between, no dual education system, nothing like an Ausbildung in Germany. So you just have these two options, and many people that study engineering end up to be technicians in the end, where they actually have no knowledge about. And what's especially coming there is coding at the moment. So everyone wants to be a software developer. And as you might know, just in Europe, there's a shortage, a predicted shortage of 900,000 developers in 2020. In Jordan and Turkey, the situation looks similar. So we set up a program for our students in which they do not even have to get a university degree in the end. It's a practical program that's recognized by companies, and it works like this, that they study 4 months online. It's selected courses, mostly from Utah City, that really offer practical knowledge in coding. So it's Python or Java or JSS, so it's really concrete, cutting-edge coding languages that our students can learn there. And in the end, they will do a project, coding a website for an NGO, or maybe implementing an app for a company. They will also get a grade for this, and in the end also do their own process, come up with their own idea, and actually experience a practical project on their own in a company that is also interested in hiring these people. So we connect our students we don't just bring them education, we also connect them at the same time with possible employees so that they can continue working for that company that they already worked for these 2 months. And of course, at the same time, they also have access to all of our services, the MOOCs. They can also just do MOOCs that they are interested in, our interaction platform, all of the physical supports, all of the learning facilities, everything that basically belongs to university. So what's our current status? We founded Kiron about 1 year ago. And after 1 year, we have 250 volunteers and a core team of 80 people. 30 of them are fully employed at the moment. We have, I think it's 26 regional groups throughout Europe. There's a group sitting in Boston, there's one in Istanbul, one in Amman. There is one that we will set up in Beirut. There's a huge board of professors that always select these courses to make sure that they actually have the quality and also a pedagogic red line in the courses, so that our university partners are assured these courses are on an academic level. We have about 30 partner universities, 120 that we are in talks with. The MOOC providers are mostly based in the US. There's also Iversity as a German MOOC provider, or EdRec from Jordan. So that's some of the foundations that we work with. Basically, these slides are just to show how great we are. and I hope you enjoyed the talk. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Our goal is to empower thousands of refugees. I think there's still enough people out there with the 2,000 students that we currently have. Of course, that's just the beginning. Our goal is to scale up to 50,000 students in 2020, and I'm happy if you're interested in that project and want to talk to me later on. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do you have some more minutes to sit down?
Yeah, of course.
Since I got the mic, I get to ask the questions. My first question would be, why did you get started? Like, you personally?
Yeah, I worked with refugees, and it was even before this big number of refugees came to Germany in summer last year. I experienced that there are so many people, especially in Berlin, that were qualified, sometimes had better qualifications than I had, but they had no chance to get a job in Germany just because their qualifications were not recognized, or sometimes they just had to write their bachelor or their master thesis, and of course they couldn't do it anymore in Germany. So when I worked with them, it was in a psychological counseling in Germany, in Berlin. We always tried to talk with them about what actually happened in the past, but it didn't work out at a certain point anymore. And a good friend of mine there, that was Fatima, she was actually telling me, Markus, if you really want to help us, just bring some music, bring some food, and let's have a party here. I think that was a good symbol. What she really wanted to say is, like, let's create perspectives for the future. Let's be in the moment and look forward and not look at what actually happened in the past, because, of course, that's what comes up to them every night probably. And yeah, then a good friend of mine, Vincent, had this idea of bundling these online programs, these online courses, and we actually wanted to do kind of a university free education for everyone out of it in the beginning, where people could have a look into certain subjects before they actually decide to study that. So for engineering, for example, math looks completely different than the stuff that you learn in school. And we wanted that people make good decisions based on their real desires before they enter university. And when he pitched that idea to me, I thought directly that this is actually genius for refugees, for all the people that I know that do not have a single chance to educate themselves further and are sometimes forced to really sit in their camps for 2 or 3 years without an outlook. They are told to do German courses, they are told to integrate, and they don't even know how they can do it, you know? Yeah. So it turned out that this is actually, education is of course a really good way to foster integration in the end.
So what's your, if in a perfect world, where will you be in about 3 years from now?
Yeah, I think we're pretty good already. I mean, we're starting in Turkey now, we're starting in Jordan. I would just wish that we could offer it for more people there, where we are already. Of course, like, our costs are not that high. It's like 5% compared to a conventional university. But it's also costs, and it's hard to get the big fundings for such a young project. But the problem is there right now, and if you leave someone without a perspective for 1 or 2 years, this person will not be the same anymore. So for us, it's actually really important to scale up as soon as possible, because there's thousands of people in the waiting line, and we really would like to let them in the next months. That would actually be the best world. And then in the next 3 years, all of them are close to their degree, hopefully.
Probably besides language classes, which is like the most popular class or topic that refugees want to learn something about?
Yeah, I would say it's really the entrepreneurship classes. So especially people from Syria, they are makers. Like, Syrians always want to create something. They are salesmen. They can negotiate. And it's great to see that in these migration hubs, people already took some of our courses, and it's not even the 1-year track that they need to complete. They just got inspired. They developed their own ideas. One of our students, for example, found a way how you can make online transactions for Syria from Germany to Syria, which was not possible before. So refugees couldn't have a bank account, and they had to transfer the money through middlemen. There was big corruption. 30% of the money got lost from the way to Germany, from Germany to Syria. And he actually developed kind of like a PayPal paying solution, especially for refugees, made partnership with a big bank, and it turned out to be the first startup for refugees to transfer money to their home countries.
And that's a really beautiful story that makes me think of Kiron not so much as an education institution, but much more like a network, like a hub. That's where you turn to first, and you don't actually need to take the classes, you just need the people and then get going. So what is it that you say, if you can say so, but what is like the main thing we can learn from all those young people that come over and start or finish the education here? What is it that we Germans can learn from them?
Yeah, I think we can learn from both sides, and I think what I'm always really impressed with is how positive they are. Like there's no looking back. There's no complaints about their situation. Like there's really people who write us emails telling us that they now again have a reason to wake up in the morning. And it's not just them, it's actually also their neighbors that cannot read and write, but they don't care. They're kind of infected by them because they have something to look forward to. And that's something that's even, even deeper in Jordan, for example, where there's just no money from governmental institutions to actually help refugees, not even enough money for their own Jordanian inhabitants. So, of course, for them it's hope, and it's really great to see just by giving them like this little sparkle of hope what comes out of them. And I think my biggest learning was that the real question to ask is actually not whether we can make it, it's you just have to believe in that they can make it.
That's a very nice, actually it would be a nice last sentence, but are there questions from the audience? No. Then I have one more question. What was the thing that surprised you most in the process of starting this project, from having the idea of supplying something like education to them to where you are today? Maybe not so much the refugees themselves, but the process. I mean, it's not easy to start up your own idea and turn it into something here in Germany. Yeah. So.
Like, to be honest, I think it was the compromises you have to make with the initial idea that you had. It's basically to learn that in the end it's about money if you want to make it big. And money, especially for refugees, of course, just goes in projects that have to happen outside of Germany, because
that's the idea we have of.
There's also people here. But of course, that's also one concern of ours. We want to create perspectives for refugees wherever they are. And we don't care if they are in Germany or in Turkey or in Jordan. For most people, it's actually more comfortable to study in Jordan because they are closer to their home countries. It feels more like home to them. So they don't even want to come to Germany necessarily. And I think that was, like, from an entrepreneurial perspective, the biggest learning, that of course, it works for 1,000 people doing it all on a volunteer basis, but once it turns into a real organization and you have 30 employees that you're responsible for, there needs to be projects that you do in cooperation with other institutions, just because you have to finance the whole overhead of your own institution.
How many of those employees you have are refugees? Or immigrants, actually. Because refugees might not be.
There's also some refugees that we got to know. Like from the volunteers, I would say it's maybe a quarter of them is refugees.
Wow,
so
that's quite a lot.
Yeah, it's one principle in our organizational structure is that we have different circles, like in a holacracy approach, where we organize ourselves, and in the circles that are about our product and or about the communication, there always has to be refugees included in these circles, so that we don't work out projects or solutions for refugees. We actually work out the solutions with refugees. And that's a good way to ensure also that you actually have the user feedback kind of incorporated in the processes of developing new features from the beginning on. And there was stuff that we didn't expect, like communication features. Like we thought about some fancy stuff where, I don't know, we could make live conferences, like direct live conferences that our students could access. Would have been a huge trouble to implement these features. And then they were just like, nah, I think no one will use it. We just organize ourselves on WhatsApp.
I think a lot of companies here that you meet can actually learn from the very customer-oriented approach you have. I really like the idea, and I wish a lot of luck, especially with getting the money to get things done and get them big all over the place. Because I mean, there's so much more refugees all over the world than just the ones we've met in the past year.
Yeah.
So good luck with that.
Thank you very much.
And maybe we see you again in 1 year, and then you're going to tell us more about how the last year had been for you.
I'm pretty sure. Thank you.
Thank you, Markus. Give him a warm hand.